Welcome to the King of the Court podcast with Ben Riggs and Ben Staten.
Welcome to the King of the Court podcast. I'm Ben Riggs. This is Ben Staten.
Yep.
One of the things you were wanting to talk about is there's been a lot of chatter lately about LeBron and the slope of LeBron's seemingly immune to time career. And so what is it you've been seeing?
You know what I mentioned on one of the early episodes of this season that one of the things I noticed with LeBron is I think we're starting to finally see Father Time catch up to him. And I'm not trying to say that he's like washed. I mean, the man. What is his stats? I think he's averaging 23 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. Like that's not stats of someone who's washed. There's been a clear decline this year in terms of his production compared to prior years. Like he has his worst offensive rating in a decade. He's only 113.7, which is about league average. He's never been league average before. He has the worst defensive rating of his career. His lateral quickness, in particular, has disappeared. He is truly now, for the first time in his career, a pure 4. Small forwards move too fast for him. He cannot guards. He gets roasted by guards. They cannot just get by him. And the decline this year seems to me to accelerate. The numbers show that as well. I mean, his 2.4 points worse this year than his career worst. He has the worst net rating of his career, negative 6.9. Now, some of that's due to the Lakers just not being great themselves. It's hard to have a net rating when your team's bad. And that's been the case. And then VORP, which is the greatest name for an advanced stat, means value over replacement player. Basically, what's the value? If you just replace LeBron with random rotation player off the bench, he's a 1, so he's 1 point better than that. I would argue that when you get to these advanced stats, that
stat's
careful. But the 1 is probably a little misleading. But what it is true is that it's catching that it's it is 4.4 points worse than last year. His impact this year is diminished, and what I've also seen with him is that it's reflected in traditional stats too. I mean, you got points per game, 22.5. It's lowest since his rookie year. Stocks, blocks and steals, he's only at 1.1. Traditionally LeBron averages more than that in his just in steals alone per game. His PER, which is John Hollinger's basically efficiency rating, player efficiency rating, it's his lowest since his rookie year. It's 20.9. We're just starting to see statistical decline across the board, which you've never really seen before. There have been individual metrics in the past that have dropped, but we're starting to see it drop across the board. And what really held him up last year, that's not really maintained this year. Last year he had his best 3-point shooting year of his career. It was. I mean, I believe he was over 40%. Am I correct about that? Then he shoot over 40%.
He was either at 40. I think he may have been 41. It's right around there. I don't remember for sure.
Yeah. This year he started really, really hot. He's in an extended slump. You think he was 0 for 10 tonight or 0 for 9?
0 for 9.
That's not reflected in these numbers, but he's only shooting 68% in the restricted area. That's his worst in. I mean, this is just a testament to how his longevity. It's his worst in 19 years. And he's shooting 39% in the paint in the non-restricted area. So basically anything that's not a layup, he's really struggling on in the paint, which means that and that's, I think, a reflection, quite honestly, of the biggest issue that he's facing in these areas is that his lift unless he gets a real running start, he has no lift on these shots. And so they're far more contested than they have been in years past. Mid-range, everyone struggles at mid-range shooting. That's why people move out to 3, but he's only shooting 30%. The only shot, and I think this is this matches the eye test. The only shot which he's shooting at a truly elite level is this, the above the break 3. He's shooting about 5 or 6 of those a game. And he's shooting that 40%. This is the shot where he kind of comes down and just takes a 3-pointer, or he catches it and shoots it. That's his best shot right now. And I think that's sort of reflective, honestly, into what we were seeing with him. If his 3-pointer is working, he is an elite player still. because people have to come out on him, and it's just, he's such a big and strong. You have to respect his drives, even with his like diminished speed. He's going to get his 3-point shots. If it's not working, then it's a lot more rocky. Then it gets, you had a good night today. If you have a team that doesn't have the strong physical defenders that can basically stop him from bull rushing his way into the lane, then it's probably not going to be a great night for him if his 3-pointer is not working. If it is, he's going to be all right. But he's still such a bull that if you don't have someone who physically can match up with him, then he's gonna be able to do that. And that's why he's never going to be a player who's going to be like a 10-point a game player. LeBron at 45, as long as he doesn't like lose a leg, is going to be able to get 15 to 20 points a game just by pure strength alone. But what we're seeing with this, and this is, I think you have some points about this. This diminished LeBron is really starting to impact basically the Lakers lineups, and lineups that have worked now for like 3 years in a row. These LeBron, AD, Reeves lineups are no longer translating. Last year, the 3-man, LeBron, Davis, Austin Reeves lineup had a positive net rating of 1.2. This year, that same 3-man lineup has a negative net rating of 8.4. You switch that up to LeBron, AD, Hachimura. That 3-man lineup last year had a positive net rating of 4.1. That's basically like, net, offensive rating minus defensive rating. What do you get?
But there's still their best 5-man lineup, if I'm not mistaken, is LeBron, AD, Hachimura, Reeves, and D'Lo, right?
That is their only positive offensive lineup. Yes.
Yeah, that's their only net positive lineup.
Positive. Yeah.
Outside of some of these ones, like just to be clear for anybody who's going in and looking at like NBA.com or something, like there are going to be some that are in the 20-something minute range where people are like, well, look at the connect numbers. Yeah. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like the thing you have to be cautious about with the connect numbers is you need a much, much bigger sample size, because with connects, you have a few games in there where the dude went on heaters and like wild heaters. And so I'll grant you like connect heat. I'm not going to say heater is something you can expect, but like the connect heat is something that it looks like is going to be somewhat reliable. And I think Austin, JJ Redick is starting to start connect. Maybe that's going to solve some of that problem. But my only reason for bringing that up is to say, while yes, you can point out that LeBron James is, quite frankly, he's not the only common denominator in these lineups, which is something I'll talk about in a minute. I just want to let you finish.
Common denominators in all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But and then like just some more. If you go up to 4-man lineups, like if you're saying, maybe it's the other 2 players in the court. You go up to 4-man lineups, and like the reason you have to go to 4 is there have been some changes in rotation, so it's just hard to match 5-man lineups from last year, just because there's just not for example, Connect did not exist in the Lakers last year, so you can't.
Sure.
But
and not only did Connect not exist, but that type of player didn't exist on the Lakers.
And basically Ham liked to play as his 5th starter in any lineup for some reason. Taurean Prince.
Sure.
So they're like the lineup data for out for 5-man lineups, because Prince is no longer on the team. It just does not work. Like you're not going to have relevant sample sizes. But if we're just going to go to 4-man lineups with LeBron, AD, Reeves, and Hachimura, last year it was a really positive plus 5.3. This year again, we're still early in the season, but it's negative 6.6 net rating. Interestingly enough, the one, and this is why I think lineup data can be a little misleading. Might want to make some pause. If you've watched the Lakers consistently this year, D'Lo has not looked like a positive player. In fact, he got benched because he was not a positive player.
No, 100%.
Yeah, the lineup data indicates that D'Lo is like the player that like lifts lineups out of the red for them, which is
clearly not the case.
Clearly not the case. Take it with a grain of salt. But, even with D'Lo in there, like it's just what happens is the Lakers suffer from one of 2 things. Either one of their lineups is going to be really good offensively or really bad defensively, or it's going to be really bad offensively and really good defensively. And so there is no lineup, even in the positive, LeBron, AD, Reeves, Hachimura, D'Lo lineup that is good at both. That is just not a thing that happens. And
all right, so let me ask a couple questions, like to kind of summarize, or not even summarize. I'll summarize what I think it is that you're saying, and you tell me if you disagree with me, like in terms of like, you walked into our virtual boardroom. I hope you get paid what Caitlin Clark does for a virtual. I think I saw that that price scale. That was $100,000 for 30-minute Zoom.
I put an hour of work on these slides, so I better get $200,000.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if I was you, I'd take the 100. But I'll summarize what I took away from what you presented. You tell me if that's a fair summary or if there's a point in which you disagree with it. First, I'll start on the exclusively on the LeBron point. Over the arch of his 22-year career, you feel like in what you're seeing in LeBron now, it is a more noticeable slippage of LeBron's skills on the court, or do you feel like it's just a continuation of slippage we've seen in the last few years?
Yes and yes to both those questions. I think what you've seen is there's been a slow decline that he's been so fantastic at. I think there's been a consistent decline in athleticism. He's not like he's immobile, but like he just doesn't have the hops he had before. Especially if he's not able to get like a full a head of steam.
Well, I don't even think if he does have the full head of steam, he has the hops he had before.
Yeah, and so what LeBron has done to compensate for that is he's tried to maximize his ability as a 3-point shooter, and that has, to his great credit, helped stem the tide to a large extent. And for everybody listening at home. Like, there are probably 2 players in the NBA that I feel like if someone owns stock in them, I would be a shareholder. It's LeBron and Luka Doncic. Like, I'm as big a LeBron fan as you can be. If this was a Jordan-LeBron debate, I'd die on that hill. So that's who he's presenting this data to. Yep.
If what we're saying is that over the course of this 22-year career, there has been, from a certain point forward, and I don't know when that point was. I would probably mark it at like 3 years ago, is when you began to see there's some difference in LeBron's game.
Yes.
And inarguably, there were probably ways of measuring the decline prior to that where you could have picked it up. It's just not seen by the naked eye, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But in about 3 years is where I feel like you could start to see it via the naked eye. I agree with you about the 3-point shooting. I think that LeBron's developed a consistent 3-point shot that has helped stem that tide. Also think LeBron's physical strength helps him stem that tide. And I think LeBron's basketball IQ and playmaking ability helps him stem that tide.
100%.
So I think those 3 things, it's like the problem, in my mind, is that if we're having a discussion about natural decline in a player who turns 40 this month, not only do I agree with you, I mean, I think shouldn't be a controversial point. Honestly, I feel like if you're arguing that there's decline in a man who's 40 in an elite professional athletic endeavor, you're being a little obstinate, right? Like you're too much of a fan and you're allowing that to override common sense and objectivity. There is absolutely a decline in LeBron's game. And simply put, like if you say there's not, you're arguing this is Miami Heat LeBron, which you just sound like a damn idiot, right? Like it's just clearly not. What I will say is that he's falling from such great heights
right down, forcing the shoulder.
Yeah.
that he's falling into a stratosphere of being like a borderline all-star player for the first time in his career.
Yes.
Like he has been, since he walked in the league, a clear, unquestionable all-star level, all-NBA level basketball player. And this is the first year I've seen where, I mean, I think he's still been good enough that if you had, especially when you consider the way all-star voting is done and who he is, he's still going to end up being on the all-star team. He's not all NBA level. I'll grant you that. But, you know, I think the bigger problem for the Lakers and for LeBron, to be quite honest with you, it's these lineups. Like, and I'm not saying JJ Redick is doing something wonky and stupid with the lineups. I'm saying Rob Pelinka has built a fatally flawed roster. I mean, you sort of have to pick your own poison, right? Like, you can have a guy in D'Lo who I think is a middling level. Because one thing, like, and you didn't mention this, so before we move on from it, I'll mention this. To me, the one thing you could point, at least I might have missed you missing it, or missed you mentioning it. But the thing about LeBron, I think you could point to and be like, oh, I mean, like that's not typical LeBron, is the turnovers.
Yep.
Well, the turnovers really started to crank up when D'Lo left the starting lineup. Mm-hmm. And so what you're seeing is JJ Redick trying to solve this problem. With D'Lo in the game, I have a middling level ball handler who can initiate my offense, and in terms of offensive production is streaky at best. Last night, D'Lo was, I think it was last night or the night before, D'Lo was pretty good. And then there are other nights where D'Lo is basically unplayable, because if D'Lo is on the downside of a streaky night offensively, he's a turnstile on defense. And so you have virtually no perimeter defense with D'Lo and Austin Reeves on the court. All right. And you can't choose D'Lo over Austin Reeves except for maybe on a nightly basis, because Austin Reeves is too good a player. So you try to swap D'Lo out and bring in somebody like Cam Reddish, who is at best a middling level perimeter defender, who offers you virtually nothing offensively. He's an NBA player with some level of athleticism, so I don't want to overstate how little he offers. I mean, he can catch a back cut and dunk it. He can occasionally knock down an open corner three, but like, he's not really giving you much offensively.
So the type of player you saw a lot more in the 90s, where like he can catch a back cut and he's a defensive primary, but he has no 3-point shooting ability really. And like those guys used to get played, but once like people started shooting more threes, it's just very rare to see a defense first player with no ability to stretch the floor consistently. That's just
100%. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And on that team, you already have a deficit of 3-point shooting, so putting him on the floor kind of exacerbates that problem, right? So you see LeBron with D'Lo out of the starting lineup, Cam Reddish moving into the starting lineup. You see LeBron and really assume a lot of the sort of point guard roles on the team. Austin Reeves as a playmaker is somewhat limited. I'm not trying to shit on Austin Reeves either. I think Austin Reeves is a really good basketball player. I think he has taken a little bit of a leap this year. He's been really good. But Austin Reeves is limited in terms of what he can do as a primary ball handler, point guard, shot creator for others. He's good at creating his own shot. He can create space. He can create contact. He can get to the foul line. But his ability to create for others is relatively limited. And I think it goes without question that if you're looking at like a Cam Reddish, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, either Dalton Connect or Rui Hachimura and AD lineup, LeBron is the best playmaker on that team. Quite frankly, LeBron's probably the best playmaker on a lot of NBA teams still. He's lost the athletic element of his playmaking some. But like if you watch that game tonight, that behind the back pass he had from the top of the key to the cutter on the baseline, fantastic pass, beautiful pass. You can find it on our Twitter page. It was absolutely amazing. That's not the kind of pass you're going to get from Austin Reeves, right? But the problem becomes when you put, and you saw it in that OKC game, you put LeBron in that position where he's on ball a lot, these quicker, long-armed perimeter defenders of the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander variety, the Jalen Williams variety, these guys, some of your Isaiah Joes, people like that, they give LeBron fits. You know, Lou Dort's style of defense is much more brute force perimeter defense, and LeBron can manage to keep that off of him a little bit. Like, Dort's arms aren't extremely long. It's those quick, shifty defenders that really caused problems for LeBron, and the swarming caused problems for him, too, because he likes to get to the top of the key and put his back to you and use his size to let a play develop and make a pass from that position, and they swarm you and don't give you that opportunity. I think there were some other problems in that game. AD just seemed disinterested in being involved in the offense that night. But the other thing we've seen with the Lakers and LeBron this year that is kind of bizarre is the staggering. And I understand why JJ Redick would do this because he's LeBron James. And so you're looking at LeBron James and you say, well, we've got to sub some of these guys out, right? Like, we've got to give people a breather. So when Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui Hachimura are on the floor together, who do we put out there to anchor that lineup? I understand why you would say, let's put LeBron James out there. Then this is a real lineup I just listed. For anybody listening who's wondering, well, who the hell would put that lineup out there? That's what I mean when I say it's a fatally flawed roster. You know, when you move Dalton Connect to the starting lineup, and you're looking to get people a breather and you start staggering those rotations, you end up with Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui on the floor together. Because not only did the Lakers not have really a good two-way point guard or a good two-way guard period, they also don't have an adequate backup to Anthony Davis.
No, they don't. And I mean, one of the things that has happened this year, this has been a decline in like age-related speed decline, and just like that is LeBron has become. This has been, happening for years now, but LeBron is very firmly a 4. He's a power forward at this point in his career, and so when and
because of the lift thing you talked about earlier, he provides you with no rim protection either. Yeah. Even on those chase down blocks that,
he's only 6'8". He's only 6'8", so he's not like a huge power forward either. Like, for example, like Jabari Smith.
He's not 6'10", yeah.
Yeah, Jabari Smith, like some power forwards, like that's not like he's not small.
Bobby Portis is 6'10", yeah.
Like Portis, Jabari Smith,
100%.
I mean, Michael Porter Jr. is 7 feet tall. You have these taller guys, but it's throwing some of the Lakers lineups out of whack. So when the Lakers had their miraculous turnaround at the trade deadline 2 years ago, when they made their run from out of the playoffs
to the Western Conference Finals,
one of the key additions to that was Rui Hachimura, and Hachimura, playing Hachimura, Davis, and LeBron together gave the Lakers this bruising lineup, big lineup, and that was predicated in large part on either Hachimura or LeBron being able to play the 3. Hachimura does not move well enough to play the 3. He just does not, and he's also just doesn't have LeBron's, just grandmaster level basketball knowledge, just like, to compensate for the fact he's just not that quick laterally. LeBron at that point in time still could do that, and he wasn't excelling at it, but he had AD behind him, and he could still funnel play people to AD and overcome that. That lineup right now, and you can see that in the stats, the dramatic decline by like 10 points per game, basically like that, 10 points of net rating. That line that is indication LeBron and Hachimura really can't share the court anymore. That fact just really struggles defensively. Defensively, it's become a big issue. The other thing in terms of playmaking is then this is a natural byproduct. The more you shoot threes, it is much like playmaking as a point guard. One of LeBron's greatest keys at playmaking historically has been the fact that he collapses defense and he has the passing to pass out and just hit the open man. If you're just bombing away from three, you are not you may be able to make shots over the defense, but you're not causing the defense to collapse. The defense is more still set. The defenders are still able to hold on and prevent you from making passes to open men a lot more easy because you're basically just standing there and shooting 3-pointers. And you're not forcing them to move in and move back out. So that's also impacting, it's requiring him to do a lot more complicated passes. You're seeing a lot more this year of like behind the back passes, like Jokic style, like whip passes, and he can hit them. But the reality is the more you do that, the more likely you are to commit a turnover. And
sure.
Yeah. And so it just increases turnover rate. The other part with this, the lineup issue, this is a team that at full strength, this is a team that plays Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes. And if not Jackson Hayes, they play Christian Wood. That's just not...
Or Christian Coloco or whatever.
Christian Coloco, yeah. These are not that's Denver level bench type of players. Like people oh shit. Like Jackson Hayes he's not like... I'm not saying he's not an NBA caliber player, but he's just not doing... he is fully relying on other people to be effective, both on offense and on defense.
Jackson Hayes is pure athleticism. He's a guy who catches a rebound in the right spot and dunks it. He's a guy who catches a lob. He's a guy who you funnel an attacker to, and he blocks their shot. But I think I think you and I are saying the same thing. And if it was succinctly stated, and the reason I brought up that bizarre lineup of Cam, D'Lo, Rui, and Gabe Vincent is because I think 3 or 4 years ago, if you would have had that lineup and you would have said, let's stagger LeBron's minutes so he's out there to anchor it, I think he could have done that. Yeah. But there's been enough of a decline now to where LeBron can't do that anymore.
Nope.
I still think LeBron is a borderline all-star level player, but he's not Superman anymore.
No.
And you can't expect him to sort of, put on that cape and carry a lineup like that. So we agree on that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Second thing I think we're saying is that and even more to the point defensively, to kind of piggyback off what you were saying earlier, when you don't have an adequate backup to Anthony Davis, anytime Anthony Davis steps off the floor, there's going to be a gaping hole in the center of your defense. There's no one to funnel him to. And if you're fielding a lineup where it's Cam, D'Lo, Rui, LeBron, and Gabe Vincent, they're going to get to the rim.
100%.
The ball's just got to move enough for them guys to get to the rim. I think LeBron's still quick enough and strong enough that you may not just blow by him on the first go. Make a pass so that he has to step away for a second and then swing it back to his guy. And the guy will beat him whenever LeBron goes to close it out. The guy can get past, Gabe Vincent's, is good at, I think his best attribute is his on-ball defense.
It's his only
even that. Yeah. It's not like anything to write home about. Cam Reddish is really the only guy on the perimeter that I feel somewhat comfortable just him being on ball. And even then, this is an offensive league, man.
Yeah.
You can be a good on-ball defender. Offensive players are going to get by you. They're going to get to the rim. And if they've got to deal with a 40-year-old LeBron or Rui Hachimura when they get there, players in the NBA are going to score over that.
100%.
And so that's just a huge gaping hole. And then the third point I'll mention is 3 years ago, if JJ Redick would have been in LA and he would have said, look, what we need to do is get D'Lo out of the starting rotation, have him coming off the bench, and, we'll put Cam Reddish out there to give us some perimeter defense, and we'll basically make LeBron our own ball point guard. We'll have Austin Reeves bring it up and then him get the ball to LeBron and he'll initiate the offense. LeBron probably could have done that. He doesn't have the lateral quickness that he had back then. He's laterally quick enough. He still gets to the rim, but I agree with you. 6'8", 250 coming down the lane, 40 inches off the ground is a whole lot different than 6'8", 250 coming down the lane, 26 inches off the ground.
Yeah, and there's a lot more. It's slower now because he's got to really muscle his way through. And like that, and like
it's not the freight train.
It's not the freight. It's slower now. It's muscle way through, which allows teams to swarm. Like if you're a freight train, it's hard to swarm because it's just moving so fast. Like you saw that against Thunder. Thunder had.
Oh, it's also a foul. It's a foul. Yeah. It's more of an avalanche now.
Yeah. Yeah. And and look, I think this, your point about the Lakers lineup, because they made their single change basically during the offseason was adding, Dalton Connect and I guess now Christian Coloco. One of the issues that they have is that this lineup, because this is a team that was built 3 years ago, no longer matches the strengths and needs of the team that exists today. It is just not. It is the roster is not tailored to the needs of LeBron of 2024, 25 LeBron and 2024, 25 AD. And the result is you have a situation where they have made a coaching improvement, coaching upgrade, and the team is still arguably, and like a strategic upgrade too. I would argue that this, it is arguably a worse product this year than last year.
To give a little credit to JJ Redick, because there's a lot of talk about how you got rid of Darvin Ham and you brought in JJ Redick, and you're basically getting the same product in terms of win-loss record. I know that before tonight, the Lakers won tonight. And also to give a little credit to LeBron, what do you have, like 24 and 15 or something tonight? He had a pretty good night.
The Jazz stat inflation.
I'll defend LeBron a little bit more than that. Like they were also tonight, they were without D'Angelo Russell, Cam Reddish, Austin Reeves. Also, Bronny James was on the injury report. I see your just flipping through. I saw your Spurs get a close win. That's nice.
Yeah.
But the point I'd make about JJ Redick is, yes, the win-loss record. I don't know where they were after tonight's game compared to last year, but going into tonight, it was identical to where they were last year.
Yep.
However, to your point about LeBron's diminished abilities, I think that kind of points to the fact that JJ Redick is giving you the same win-loss record with less resources. Yeah. And one more question. I don't know where we are in the Jared Vanderbilt saga. I saw an Instagram story that promised me Christian Wood was coming back. I'll be the first to admit that whatever Christian Wood is when he comes back doesn't turn you into a contender. The best I ever saw Christian Wood, or at least in recent years, was when he was in Dallas with Luka. He's not going to be that because he doesn't have anybody creating for him at that level. But I will say this. If Christian Wood comes back and he's fully healthy, at whatever point he comes back, he is better than Jackson Hayes, Christian Coloco, and all those guys.
He can actually create a shot for himself.
Yes, he can stretch the floor a little bit for you. He can knock down some perimeter shots. He can catch lobs. You can funnel people to him, and he can protect the rim at a backup center level. Like that is what he is, and he is much better at that than Jackson Hayes or Koloku or whoever else the Lakers have on that roster. I will say, if you have Vanderbilt back playing at a high level, that's a little different because he's significantly better than Cam Reddish. But I still think you have a ball handler problem. What do you think about if and when those two guys show up and you just give them, them showing up in relatively good form? What does that do for the Lakers?
I mean, Vanderbilt, in theory, is a really good addition. Now it's been 2 years since we've seen him. Like, it's hard for me to tell what this, like, he was 26, like, peak athletically. He's 28 now. It's not like he's on the decline, but, like, that's just that's a big difference from, like, what we're talking about. But in theory, that gives them an athletic, rangy defender who can guard both the perimeter and in the paint a little bit. I would love it if they had a Vanderbilt who could shoot 3-pointers, but he is a player that he adds athletically to what this is a team that needs athleticism and needs smart play, and he is a smart player. Wood is one of those frustrating players who has all the physical tools and seems to have a little bit of a space cadet syndrome, where he struggles to put them all together, and to translate specifically his immense talent. Because, like, he is an incredibly skilled big man. Like, he can shoot, he can post up.
For his size, he has a lot of skill.
He's averaged legitimately 17 points a game. But he's also the guy who averaged 17 points a game for the Mavs, and at 27, and only managed to parlay that into a minimum contract because he got benched by the end of the year because he just wasn't able to play to follow the coach's instruction on D.
Well, I also think it was kind of obvious, like he's getting 17 points a game with somebody table setting for him that you're very unlikely to be able to replicate that at whatever team you're bringing him to. Yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah, and there's like a tendency to be empty calorie type of scoring, but I do think that's an upgrade. But I do think that specifically, it does not answer the two specific needs that I think that this team needs to move from the pretender to the contender stage. One, they need a point of attack defender. Like they need what the Bucks found in AJ Green. They need someone who can stay in front of the ball. Ideally, you can shoot a 3-pointer too. And they can play rugged defense, and Fitz is a glue guy. They need that. They can't. You see this even when they go full offense, when they put Reeves and Dalton Connect out there. That lineup just hemorrhages points, and he is not able to overcome it because it's like what was happening to the Bucks early in the season. Guards are just running into the lane full heads of steam. They're not being funneled in any direction. AD has to scramble to make up. They kick out to the open man, 3-pointer.
And that's on a team with two elite shot blockers in Giannis and Brook Lopez.
Yeah, and and it's part of the reason that Connect, even though he's been fantastic offensively, if you look at the lineup stats, some of the lineups are just really rough. It's because, and it's not, the offense is good, it's just the defense has been really bad. But so I would want to add a point of attack defender at the 2. And then I would also want to add a backup ball handler, like a point guard, who can take some of the playmaking responsibilities from LeBron, allow him to rest a little bit more, and someone who, but also D'Lo technically should be able to do this, but D'Lo's big issue is he doesn't always play winning basketball. Just to be kind, I'll put that in a very kind way of saying. And I would want someone who, in that position, is a superior defender to D'Lo and is a better playmaker for others. Playmaking tends to actually be a lot for D'Lo.
One of the things too, like before we move fully away from those topics about the lineups, like LeBron's gotten a lot of attention recently, particularly on Twitter, about, his drop off. And one of the reasons I point out the lineups, and mention, like, he's not the only common denominator in that. And really, if you start to kind of think through some of these lineups, you see that they have a porous defensive backcourt. And really what we're talking about is LeBron James has declined enough to where, you and I have talked a lot about how Luka's one of those guys who takes your C player and turns him into a B player, your B player and turns him into an A player. Like, LeBron's always been that guy. General managers have leached off of LeBron's ability to do that for years. And he's not that guy anymore. He's declined enough that he's not the guy who's going to do that for you anymore. And what you also see as a result of the way this roster is constructed is, like, I don't think Anthony Davis has declined as a defender. Look at the opponent's field goal percentage against Anthony Davis. It's shot way up.
Yep.
And it's because of the shots these guys are getting against him.
Yeah.
And that has to do not with Anthony Davis declining as a defender. It has to do with how bad the team defense is for the Lakers. And it's because they don't have the personnel, at least not currently healthy, to structure a good team defense. My thing with Jared Vanderbilt is I do think if you get a healthy Jared Vanderbilt back, you have significantly improved the perimeter defense for the Lakers. What I don't believe is that you've solved the offensive problem having someone who, he can be the point of attack defender. He can't be the point of attack offensive player. And that's where the Lakers are struggling at the other end, is finding someone who can quickly initiate an offense, create space, initiate an offense, and begin to compromise defenses and get their teammates in a position to score. They don't have anybody who can really do that. D'Angelo Russell can do it some, but he does it in a very shifty. It's smooth. It's fun to watch sometimes when he's playing well, but it's not threatening. He's not attacking you in a way that compromises your defense. So Jared Vanderbilt doesn't solve that problem at all. In fact, Jared Vanderbilt, much like Cam Reddish, depending on what version of him you get, because you've seen Jared Vanderbilt in a Laker uniform be a good defender and just be a sinkhole on offense. And so he can actually exacerbate that problem. I think that the Lakers have to look at making a trade.